Cheer, cheer the red and the white, honor the name by day and by night. Lift that noble banner high, shake down the thunder from the sky. What though the odds be great or small, Swans will go in and win overall, while her loyal...
Hello and welcome to the Swans Bigfooty Podcast. My name is Bonds and I am your host today. Joining me is SM.
Hey guys.
Swans Rule 100.
Good evening, everyone.
RW Fan.
Hello.
And making his first appearance on the Swans Bigfooty Podcast is Robbieando.
Hello everyone.
Now, I may as well get going straight into business. We have a qualifying final against Hawthorn this Friday. We recently played them last Friday in a match at ANZ Stadium and got pipped at the line. Now, SM, do you want to take us away with a review of the match?
Yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot to say about the game. It was a good run out for the boys. Looked better than they have in the past few weeks. No fresh injuries, really, apart from Malcheski. So hopefully he pulls up okay. But I always felt that if we won that game, we'd actually have more trouble beating them next week. So I'm not heartbroken at the loss.
Okay, can I get your views, Robbieando?
Oh, I thought it was a good hit out in the lead up to a finals. I just wish we weren't playing Hawthorn this week, because I think with Hawthorn, they are a clinical side and they would have taken a lot out of playing us. And we wouldn't have got much out of playing them because they wouldn't have played a lot of their cards last week for what they were playing in the finals. We wouldn't have done the same either, but it was really a phony war, so to speak. So I was impressed with Biggs, and I was happy with what we got out of Rowan. I just think it was one of those games where not much was gained for either side going forward, but it was good to get some of our key midfielders back into form running into the finals.
Okay, Swans Rule 100. Can I get your views on the match?
It was an interesting game. It had a bit more intensity than I expected it to have, given what was probably on the line for both sides, which was nothing. I can wear a loss like that compared to the week before. I'm all for resting players, managing players, but don't rest your effort and your attitude. And I think we did that against Geelong, but I thought the vigour and attack and the way we went about it against Hawthorn was what we needed to get out of this game, just to get the players back into a bit of the right spirit, so to speak. The ruck dominated the game, as it should have, given really it was Mumford and Pike against Hale and Spanger giving a chop out. I'm not sure how much Spanger's paid at Hawthorn, but I think he's moved out onto the streets or something around going Ferry Oval, because he hasn't had a wash since he left Sydney. And Puopolo, he's a short-ass little runt, but he still manages to duck down every 5 seconds to draw a free when he needs it. He must love Joel Selwood. Biggs, that continued our run of debutants actually having an impact when they start. Jesse White, though, another good performance against a good side, and I'm all aboard the Jesse White train now after the Collingwood, Geelong and Hawthorn efforts in losing sides, and he was the number one forward target. So I think that was a very impressive effort, and he could have had a couple more goals. But really, the midfield getting the hands on the ball was important. Kennedy continues to, dominate against Hawthorn and stick it right up him every time he plays against them. Jack, O'Keefe, Bird, Parker all got involved. We still played with a high error game, and I think the one disappointment was that once they cleared space and turned it on a bit, they were able to get a few goals in a row and seal the victory. I was watching Heath Grundy closely too, because I was all set to defend him today. That was a bloody piss-poor effort from Grundy. And let's hope if Franklin doesn't play, or even if Franklin does play, I'd be tempted to move Ted onto Roughhead, but we'll talk about that another time, I imagine.
I'll tell you what, you said if Heath Grundy got under 75% disposal efficiency, you'd have some sort of wager with me. He got over 75%, but it's only probably because he only had 6 disposals or 7 disposals or whatever he had.
His work with the ball, it wasn't too bad. I mean, he had 85.7% disposal efficiency, but the amount of times in defence that we had, I remember there was one mismatch Roughhead took a good mark, but he was against Luke Parker and Grundy was behind them. Well, how about you jump in and maybe give your shorter midfield teammate a chop out? Why aren't you in front of Roughhead? You can't outmark
He's a spectator.
Roughhead. Yeah, well, you can't outmark him playing from behind. And unless you want to look at Roughhead's arse all night because you've got some fetish for it, get in front, Grundy, for God's sake. He offered nothing, and Everett was a bit laconic and lazy too, but I'm not sure what role Everett's really been asking to play because despite his height and size, he doesn't take the third tall backman. Rampy seems to be asked to do a lot more than Everett, which doesn't always make sense to me.
On the aspect of Everett, though, because I actually wasn't displeased with his rebound on Friday. His disposal efficiency was at 93.7%, and he was genuinely kicking it quite long.
And he had a few 1%ers.
Yeah, 4 1%ers.
I thought he played quite well. I think that was an effect of him moving into McVeigh moving into the midfield. So it was Melcheski and Everett as the halfback flankers doing the rebounding.
But if you look at their build and height, you would presume Everett would play almost the more of the key position role than Rampy. But Rampy, for some reason, is asked to go and play on a Gunston or a whoever and take on a marking forward while Everett plays a bit looser.
In regards to Rampy, he's got a very deceptive leap, actually. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he did very well at the draft camp in regards to his vertical leap on the few occasions he had gone. And in regards to Everett, I think his ideal role would actually be loose across defensive 50. He can read the ball, the play quite well, and he can use the ball. So
well, there
if
are
we
some
can get
that
him
say
loose.
LRT comes in, Everett goes out, but I think Everett's probably closer to filling Adam Goods' role at the moment, closer to a defence than Goods would ever go, but just that loose, running around, getting a few kicks and using his height to trouble the opposition. So I don't see LRT necessarily kicking Everett out if he was available. But the defensive structures I think I touched on, but Roughhead took a lot of his marks against shorter opposition, and I'm blaming Heath Grundy for that. I was a bit disappointed with his game, to say the least.
Hopefully the coaches can give him a bit of a
I hate
blast
to say I
and
told
put
you
him in the
so,
line.
but
No one likes a gloater. Come on.
Well, Roughhead's does go into the midfield quite a lot. And he's deceptively fast for a player who is renowned for being a full forward.
It's a bit like Roughhead and Franklin's a bit like this podcast. SM's the high profile guy, Franklin, but I'm like Roughhead, just doing the real work, kicking the goals.
Oh, you wish. Keep on dreaming.
Swans rule. Can we get your views on the match?
I crapped on for about 10 minutes there and you want more of my views. Every week you ask me twice.
We love hearing your views.
Not Swans rule.
Yeah,
Sorry, I meant
RW
RW fan. RW fan.
That's all right. Yeah, no. Actually, I was listening to last week's show, and SM over there gave a bit of a rant about our performance last week, and I thought, I love a good spray, but I thought with the finals coming up, I thought I'd take a positive, focus on the positives to try and go into the finals feeling good about ourselves and feeling good about the team, and I thought I'd just run through some of the positives that I thought we did quite well. I think some of them have already been touched on, but firstly, I think O'Keefe's returned to form. I thought he was back to his tackling best last Friday. I think he had quite a few tackles. Midfielders kicking goals. Parker, 3 goals. White, as mentioned, I thought White, even though he didn't have Tippett there to help him out, but I thought he caused Lake quite a few problems. I think Lake's going to have a bit of a tough time next week with Tippett and White to contend with, so they were my main positives. Negatives, I thought you guys touched on it earlier. I felt just on the idea of the defenders helping each other out, I know one of the reasons why we were so successful last year was because Grundy and Richards did help each other out, but I'm finding the way Hawthorn are playing this year, they've got all these multiple options. They don't just rely on Buddy or Roughhead. They've got Gunston, Bruce and Hale when he goes forward. So they've got many options that they can use. So it's actually maybe harder. That might be one reason why we struggle a bit, because they've got so many different ways they can channel their attacks through. So I think that made it harder for our defenders. I think that's going to be one of the issues we face next week. But that was my thoughts on the match.
Who do you think we're missing in defence more out of Matner, Shaw and Alex Johnson when you look at last year's defensive lineup?
That is a good question. I know I was thinking about it. I think that's a really tough one because they're both
I think all three of them have left big holes. It's hard to pinpoint which one we miss more, but that's a really tough one.
Personally, I'd be going with Johnson.
Yeah, Johnson. Yeah.
Johnson. He not only was a very good user of the ball and provided adequate rebound. He could take it tall if they got off the niche, and his ability to actually read the play and come through and take a mark was.
Yeah, no, I'd agree.
Incredibly valuable.
You could say that Rampy's sort of taken Matner's spot, and that McVeigh's kind of slipped back into Shaw's role, and that really it's AJ's role that we've really struggled to replace. And I guess it's Everett/Rampy who are filling in taking the player that AJ would have taken. So I agree that it's probably AJ that we're missing the most.
Yeah, we need without AJ in the side, we haven't got someone to go across and help out. There's a third man up in a marking duel for Grundy or Richards.
Yeah.
So that's one we haven't replaced. Everett's not that player. He's shown multiple times in the last at least month and a half that he's not that player.
I've always felt Everett was more of a forward than a defender coming into this season. That's where I thought he played his best football. But, I mean, over the course of the season, where he's come from, I still rate his season, but I'm not sure he's filling the role we need to, and I'm not quite sure what he's being asked to do at times.
I think it's just a misconception. I think when he was put in that role, we were struggling. It was just after the Geelong game. So he was put down there, and for the first few weeks, we went on the run of wins. And what happened was that it was seen as giving the chop out in the AJ position. Then, as the season went on, the role changed a little bit. Rampy went into that third man role, and then Everett became that rebounding defender. So, but Rampy and Everett have been kind of replacing AJ and also being rebounding defenders at the same time. So, really, we haven't fully replaced AJ, but we haven't got them playing the same role. So we've evolved our defence because as you said, we've lost Matner, Shaw and AJ, and that's just something you can't replace in a football team when they all go at one time.
That's true. But we still continue to concede too many marks inside 50s for my liking. Like last Friday, 17-8, I think. A lot of them in that little patch where they effectively won the game. And I think I would agree with missing AJ the most probably, but that third man up, Matner used to do a lot. He's underrated, I think, and his ability to hang off the contest at the right time, just his judgment. I think that experience, you can't really replace that. That'll come with time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I did want to focus on the positives a bit because I actually, when I left the game on Friday night, I actually felt quite optimistic about our chance in the finals. Although we'll talk about that more later, because the energy was back and the running was back, and I thought it was a bit of a good return to form, even though we didn't get the points. And actually, we pushed. I think, like you guys said before, we pushed them pretty hard, and it was a good preparation for the finals. Much better than Frio's yesterday, which was appalling. So I think I'd much rather have that lead in to the finals.
Oh, for sure. I think that's the happiest you could be with a loss.
Yeah.
As I said, you can wear losing, but that effort, considering our outs, I know Hawthorn have a few out, but I think we've got a little bit better quality to come back in. And just that, I think a lot of that came from Biggs, Cunningham, Jack. They didn't get a lot of the ball, but they sparked the side early, especially Biggs, and everyone seemed up and about. They seem to be having fun again, which is a silly thing to say in a sense, but the players looked like they really enjoyed taking it up to Hawthorn, and I thought they full marks. You can't fault their effort and their determination.
Fun's a good word, I think, yeah.
Well, I think what happened was that for the first time in a few weeks, our midfield was really on top for a long period of the game. We had Kennedy having a real impact, not just racking up possessions and having a minor impact. He really got on top of the ball. Kieran Jack, had put in another good shift. O'Keefe, he was just racking up tackles again. Craig Bird, Luke Parker, they had I think their best games of the season, and then McVeigh went back into the middle at times, and I think that's the key going forward. So our midfield getting on top helps out our defence, as mentioned a lot of the times on the boards, and And another thing that I think has been overlooked is that our forward line was very open. So when our forward line's not predictable, we can kick a high score.
So we weren't too top heavy this week?
I actually, with my views in regards to the forward line and the game, we did occasionally bomb it in too long, and we were lacking a target due to Jesse White leading up the ground and creating space for us. And I feel if we can gain back Tippett this week, it's going to be a massive inclusion for us, because not only can we have White and the rest of our players clearing space, but we can have a second tall target working well for us.
And I must say, I was really impressed the way that White led the line. I thought this was kind of his week where he was our main forward target, and he really didn't let me down. He played really well. It was physical. He jumped into the packs. He used his body well, and he really impressed. So I really think he's made a case that he should be included in the finals, and could really be an asset for us come September.
Well, he's tackling. Didn't he have 4 tackles or something? It's
incredible.
He had three tackles and 3 1%ers.
Well, he's probably got 3 more tackles than he's had for the rest of his career.
That's it. But where's that been? He was the number 1 forward, and he was a real danger. And the idea that Tippett will draw Lake and Gibson's attention away from White is pretty tantalising for this week, to be honest.
And then you think we've got, the casual Mike Pike to pop up with a couple of goals as well, hopefully.
In regards to Mike Pike and our ruckman on the last weekend, I actually think the biggest positive to come out of the game would have to be Shane Mumford's performance.
Yeah, I was about to say.
He had 17 disposables, 11 of them contested. He was using the ball at 82.4%. He had 4 marks, 2 of them contested, 3 of his marks were inside 50s. 41 hit-outs.
He's playing against witches' heads.
The thing is, if he's going up against Hale and possibly Roughhead again this week, and Hawthorn, if Bailey comes back...
He was up against mainly
Spanger,
Hale and Spanger, so...
Well, the thing is...
Read too much into the hit-outs.
Hale's not too bad as a ruckman.
Yeah, Hale's a decent ruckman.
He's okay as a second ruckman, but they miss Max Bailey when he doesn't play. And he's going to be a big inclusion for them this week.
We've got a couple of big inclusions as well, so that's okay.
Not to mention, even though some people will be writing off Mumford's performance as a one-off, his form in recent weeks has been amazing. Like, he's really run himself almost into career best form, and it's really gone under the radar.
Yeah.
Everyone's talking about Kurt Tippett's performances when he's been playing Mike Pike's last week, but Mumford's been performing just as well as anyone else in our team at the moment.
He's back to being that extra midfielder that he is at his best. There was a part of me that was worried he was auditioning for the Hawks, though, when you hear all those rumours he wants to go to Hawthorn.
And how are Hawthorn going to afford him? They don't have their own collar.
Yeah, no, I don't understand that one. But I'll tell you, SR100 touched on him earlier, but Shane Biggs really impressed me on debut. I mean, at the ground, I kept getting him mistaken for Brendan Jack, but looking at the stats, 18 disposals on debut is absolutely phenomenal for another guy off our rookie list. They're doing an outstanding job.
Yeah, I'd rather not drop him this week, but I can't see who wouldn't actually go away.
Because, I mean, realistically, who's he in for? He's in for Shaw, I guess. He's taking that half-back spot.
Yeah.
He would be.
I think he was just in to play for his career, really.
Yeah, I think so. And he certainly earned it.
Anyways, we're going to move on to our next subject now.
Before we move on, can I just get your guys' thoughts on Mitch Morton? Late inclusion, came on, got the goal. Has he got any chance of playing finals, or was that just a little cameo on the way out?
I think he's got every chance of finals. I mean, people
not next week though.
You never know. Like, you don't know how the coaching staff are going to view him. They've obviously rated him, especially after his performances last year. And whilst everyone's been talking up Gary Rowan's performances, especially with his pressure, Rowan still only got 4 disposals for the match. Yes, 2 of them were goals, and the other 2, he got that rundown in defensive 50. But Mitch Morton came on, got 4 possessions straight away, kicked a goal, made a fair bit of pressure and laid 2 tackles. He's very harshly judged by a few on our board, and he may be harder to drop than some people think. I was happy with his effort as sub on the weekend.
Yeah, but I don't know. I just see him, Jack, Biggs as sort of the ins to rest other players. So Tippett, amongst others. And I can't. That's just me. I just can't. I don't see him holding his spot next week. But yeah, as you say, who knows? He could be our X factor come September yet again.
Okay. Anyways, we're going to go on to the next part of the conversation. We're going to... we've got a preview coming up in the second part of this podcast. So, now we're going to actually interview our poster of the week, Robbieando. SM, do you want to get started?
Yeah, I guess I'll crack off with just asking you about... Obviously, you and I both have a passion for football as well as Aussie rules. So I guess I'd want to say... Which do you find more enjoyable to watch in a really tight, thrilling contest? And why?
In a tight contest, I'd have to admit I do enjoy...
Old Firm Derby.
Oh, that's easy. Like a tight... last minute, Boris Edu, back the net, Rangers score, 94th minute, take that any day of the week. But... I do enjoy going to live. I do enjoy going to live soccer. I think the A-League Grand Final a couple of years ago.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, yeah, sorry, it cut out for a second now.
Yeah. So I was at the A-League Grand Final a couple of years ago. Brisbane Royal, Perth Glory. 2 goals in the last 5 minutes. So yeah, soccer I do enjoy, but AFL's my main passion.
Good stuff.
I've got one question for you. How did you go about supporting the Swans?
I was basically forced. It was basically forced upon me by my father. Basically, I was given one option: support Sydney, or you can live in the kennel.
That's the way it should be.
Father, an old South Melbourne fan?
Yeah, well, I was born the year we moved to Sydney. My father was a South Melbourne supporter, so I was given no option. As I said, no option. So South Melbourne / Sydney supporter, and I had to grow up during the early 90s, so it wasn't the greatest induction to a football club, but you stick through the hard times and you get to enjoy the success of 05 and last year.
Who was your favourite player growing up?
Well, first one was Jared Healy. Second was Paul Kelly. Then I decided once Paul Kelly retired, I was going to go into favourite players after that.
Yeah, fair enough. It's a good one to go out on.
Yeah, very much so. Started with just 2 Brownlee medalists.
Did you ever have a single player that just infuriated you more than anyone else?
Grundy.
It's hard to think back, because remember, I've got to go back into the early 90s, a period that I kind of had blocked out of my head. Dale Lewis was infuriating, and that's before he came out with his drug claims. But it was very infuriating to watch live. He could take a set shot 15 metres out directly in front and miss, but he could then kick a goal from the boundary line. But he was infuriating to watch. But one of the best players we've had, criminally underrated.
Okay, and besides the 2 grand finals, obviously, what will be your favourite memory with the Swans?
I have to go with 2. First one is when we beat Port Adelaide over in Adelaide in the qualifying final in 03. I was there, and I was, half-time, we just kicked out to about a 40-point lead, walking around the bowels of Amy Stadium and thinking to myself, how is this possible? How are we winning this match? Because no one gave us a chance. The entire media just wrote us off that lead up to that game. And I tell you, that was I just went over thinking, I'll just go watch Swans play in a final. Didn't think we'd win, but I had that feeling. And that feeling paid off. The second one was the 05 semi-final against Geelong. When Nick Davis kicked that goal, all I can remember is seeing him juggle that ball and the ball hitting his foot. And because I was behind the goal, I could see it going towards the goal. I saw it go through the goals, and I decided that's it. And I started jumping up and down. Ended up about 2 rows in front of me, 10 seats across. So, yeah, a bit of crowd surfing that night.
That's a pretty damn good memory, I'm not going to lie.
Okay, you've seen 2 premierships, 05 and 12, and also 2 grand final losses. Have you watched the losing grand finals, or would you watch them? Or?
No, I've not watched a second of 06. 96, I've watched the first quarter and a half.
Okay.
I can accept 96 to an extent. I can watch up to where Paul Kelly missed Plugger on the lead, and that's where we basically lost it.
I've got to say, I mean, I watched a replay of probably about the same amount of the 96 game as you, and it is amazing rewatching that game and just seeing the talent on display who are now amongst the coaching elite or in the media or anything like that. You know, you've got your David King, your John Longmire, your Paul Roos, all those guys lining up, as well as, you know, young Michael O'Loughlin and all that sort of thing. So it is a good game to watch just for that nostalgia factor, I guess.
Yeah, and I do enjoy watching the 2 finals prior to that. As I said, that final series was, you know, having never been in a final series in my lifetime, other in my time supporting the club, I should say. So, not 86 and 87, I hadn't started following the sport. 88 was my first year, so kind of got a bit of punishment for that one. So yeah, it was like watching. It's like a roller coaster. So every time, the first few grand finals were just roller coasters for me. You know, just making the grand finals a roller coaster, then the grand finals themselves were roller coasters. So yeah, but yeah, I wouldn't watch 06 because we shouldn't. I knew that 10 minutes out we weren't going to win.
Fair enough. Okay, we're going to move on to the next part now. Everyone's favourite memories about Jude Bolton. Now, assuming you've been speaking and telling us all your favourite memories and everything, Robbie, we may as well start off with you again. What's your favourite single memory about Bolton? And, yeah, kick us off.
Well, I have to say I remember his first game, and he was a tough nut then. But I think for the first decade of his career, he copped a lot of flack for his looks. So no one really believed that he was a hard nut. So this would be there at his first game, knowing he was a hard nut because it was special, and knowing then having watched most of his games thereafter, you get all the fans, you know, going, "Oh, he's just a pretty boy," including most West Coast Eagles fans. In around 05, 06, I think the most fitting part was that he ended up winning a grand final with bandages on his head.
Well, it was always going to happen with Jude.
One of my friends actually recently joked that Jude Bolton, if he had a spinal injury or a severe knock on his head, he would actually try to come back out onto the field with a neck brace on.
Yeah. Like, you know, just getting strapped down onto the stretcher and then him trying to fight them off and get up and play still with the stretcher still strapped to him.
I could see him being restrained to a stretcher, then dragging the stretcher out with him handcuffed to the stretcher.
The funniest quote I read about Jude during the week, I think it was Nathan Gibbs or something, he said, Jude asked him once, do you Jude asked him once if he thought he should get a scan on his knee, and then I think they said, the answer is, do you really want to? Because you don't want to. Do you really want to know what's in there? Because anyway, even if you did, you wouldn't do anything about it anyway. You just play on. You just keep playing. So the fact that he was very close to tearing his ACL last year. I think it was not. Yeah. Luckily, the tear was a very small tear. Luckily, he was able to keep. He only missed, I think, three games. But,
I don't think there was a fan when he did his knee against Carlton last year, or whoever it was, that didn't have the hearts in their mouths thinking, well, he's going to miss out on finals. And I think he's pretty much well loved amongst the fan group, especially especially in recent times. But
the memory, I think he was going to miss go out for the year.
I thought season over. I would have thought at the time.
I think it was originally reported as an ACL.
I thought, he's hurt his now. It's just a flesh wound.
Yeah.
One of the most infuriating things I've ever heard about Jude Bolton has actually come up a fair bit. A few supporters, especially around Bigfooty on the main boards, tend to say he is Sydney's version of Lenny Hayes.
Yep.
I take offence to this. He went before Lenny Hayes in the draft. Lenny Hayes is is St Kilda's version of Jude Bolton.
yes.
Lenny Hayes is St Kilda's Jude Bolton.
Bolton has premiership medals.
That's true.
Jude Bolton's even played more games than Lenny.
Yeah.
No.
And laid more tackles.
I am sick and tired of everyone putting...
serious injury.
Jude less heart surgery as well.
Come on, I think that's getting a bit low.
Sorry, I was going to say I've got two favourite memories about Jude that I just wanted to quickly bring up. One of them's a bit more of a classic Jude memory, and one's more of a bizarre moment. And the first was, I think it was in 08 or 09, someone correct me if I'm wrong, where we went over to West Coast and we were trailing for the whole game. We're trailing for the whole game, and with about 20 seconds to go or 30 seconds to go, Jude got a free in inside 50 and calmly slotted the goal, and I absolutely lost it. And that was the first time that I've always loved Jude, but that was the game where I really sort of, I noticed how calm he is in front of goal. He's a great kick for goal. And that sort of leads into the second one, which was in 2010 against the Bulldogs, that bizarre bounce of the ball.
Yeah, the leg break.
Because I was over in England in a pub with a couple of mates watching their first ever Aussie rules game, and they could not believe their eyes that the ball could just bounce like that and completely change the game, and it was ridiculous.
I remember the shot of Ruzi's expression on the interchange bench, because that was when he was coaching from the bench. He was like, "Oh my god, the ball can't do that."
Oh, a friend of mine who was a lip reader said to me, Bruce's exact words were, "Oh, fuck off."
Yeah. Sounds like something really, it's just that calm sort of, you can't even believe that he's just kicked that, yeah.
I think the interesting part with Jude was, you said he was a good shot for goal, but really early in his career he was not very reliable at all. But he's kicked 194 goals, but since 2008 he's kicked 107 of those goals. He's really turned himself into that goal-kicking midfielder. And, 2007 he was supposedly the one that they put on the trade table to go, potentially, to improve the side. And credit to him since that time. His stats 2008 to 12, he's moved forward this year. He actually had elite output, really, when you look at the stats online. And
he's had career best goal return this year.
Yeah, as a forward.
Yeah.
But, one of the highlights, actually, if you Google YouTube Jude Bolton, you'll find him dancing at his wedding in some choreographed move to Fat Boy Slim, and I think that's worth checking out. I think it was top of the tree when I looked up Jude Bolton highlights, but
I've seen it.
I've seen.
Wasn't he in a t-shirt and jeans or something at his wedding?
But he got changed for the dance.
Oh, okay. So he wasn't too blokey.
Just on the proposed trade, the story goes that the club didn't put him up for trade. He offered himself up for trade if the club could get a first-round draft pick for him.
Yeah, that's what I heard as well. Because basically everyone went around and were really honest about what they needed, and I think he kind of volunteered himself.
Wasn't it something like he's in the leadership group and they said we need to make the side better and it might mean one of you has to go and but
he put his hand out like that tells you the measure of the man.
But around that time he was only an average player really if you look at his output.
Yeah.
He turned himself into a much better player as he got older and his wife's actually not bad looking either, so that's a win for him.
It was also lucky that the trade, because there was a trade talk. It was going to be traded to Melbourne, but Melbourne weren't going to give up the end of first round draft pick. They were wanting to give up a second round draft pick.
Can you imagine it if he'd gone to Melbourne?
We could have had Jack Watts.
Poor Jude.
Yeah.
I'm just happy that he hasn't. I'll give my 2 highlights if you guys don't mind.
Oh, we do.
I'm sorry, you're going to hear them anyway. The first highlight is a bit of a personal one. I was at a Swans after-match function in a pre-season game where we had played Melbourne a few years ago, and they were signing stuff after the game. Jude Bolton was the last player to leave out of everyone on our list. And he actually had, a Swans official actually had to come out to him afterwards and say, Jude, we've got to get on the team bus now. He was there for the fans right to the end, and that's just always been an image that's stuck in my head, bizarrely, as it's pretty unusual how you see some players leave early as soon as possible and some go over and beyond what is expected of them. And Jude's always seemed to be there for the fans. He's always been great in media, and I really hope he stays involved with the Swans in the future.
Yeah, well, he's sounding like he wants to, yeah.
I think it'd be great with the media, especially. I think he's got that. He's got a good. Got a good footy brain and good talking. Yeah,
he might be slightly better than Kirky was.
I'm not sure if that's too hard, but
well, they both had a fair few head knocks, so we'll reserve judgment for now, I guess.
The second highlight.
The vision of these that concussion against Brisbane a couple of years ago.
Wasn't it 2 in the 1 match?
Yeah.
Yes, I think it was.
Yeah.
And my second highlight I had of him was last year at 3/4 time in the match against North Melbourne and his war face.
Oh, in the huddle.
That was brilliant. Yeah, I remember that was someone put that
We were up
on YouTube.
by. We were up 49-93 to 7-11-53 at the time. It wasn't a close game or anything. We were up by 40 points. And he was still that intense.
No, you can never accuse him of not trying in a game. It's a shame he didn't captain the side apart from, I think, 2005 he had his couple of weeks, I think, that they all did. But, he would have been...
never wanted to do it. I think he's just one of the players who just wanted to be one of the boys and just play his footy.
Maybe.
A few years ago, I was actually having a conversation with a former Melbourne player who retired last year due to a knee injury, Clint Bartram, and I actually asked him who hits the hardest out of any player in the AFL, and he said straight away Jude Bolton, without a doubt. Apparently Jude tackled him in his second or third match, and he was feeling it for a week afterwards.
Oh.
Yeah, I saw some highlights of him where you could see his tackling in slow motion, and he really hit his opponents really hard, and you could tell they could feel it.
The other thing with Jude is his forehead's getting a lot higher. He might want to look at running the clippers through his hair soon, because I think that frontal baldness is kicking in rather rapidly.
Or you could just speak to Shane Warne.
Advanced hair, yeah.
Or if he gets an advertisement on advanced hair similar to those ex-athletes, I will piss myself with laughter.
So we've got...
we'll have to hang heads in shame.
We've got 3 300-game players, and we've all seen most of their careers. Who's your favourite? Out of Bolton, Bolton, Goods, O'Loughlin?
Oh, that's a hard one. You'd almost say Goods.
Who's your favourite child?
I'd say Goods.
You've got to say Goods because of the
like trying to pick your favourite child.
Oh, no, it doesn't have to be the best. Your favourite.
My personal favourite would have to be... My personal favourite would have to be O'Loughlin. He was my first ever favourite player as a kid. I just can't pass that.
Still, one of my favourite memories is that '06 qualifying final against West Coast, where he gave it to the West Coast cheer squad. And some of the goals that he kicked were just phenomenal. So, yeah, I got to go with O'Loughlin too.
Yeah, I go with O'Loughlin because some of the stuff he could pull out of his back pocket, just amazing to see.
Well, he didn't train for about 10 years and he was still a superstar, so I'd probably go O'Loughlin.
Should have done more goal kicking practice in the week of 05 grand final.
And if we should get that fat West Coast guy on one week when we play West Coast on the podcast.
Didn't John Candy die though?
I don't know. I've never met him.
No,
Probably had a heart attack.
About John Candy.
Okay, anyways, we're going to maybe on that move to the next subject. Now, there was a very controversial incident, actually, that happened on the weekend with Franklin taking out Nick Malcheski.
Oh, I missed that. They should have replayed it a couple of times.
Yeah, they probably should have, in hindsight. But
Well, I'm glad they did. I wasn't watching at the time.
now, he has if you watch the motion in slow motion, it does look like it is a single movement, but there is a definite connection of the shoulder and the head. How many weeks do we all think he's going to get? Will he get suspended, and is there a Victorian media bias to get him off?
Well, I think he'll get one, and from what I've heard from people posting on Bigfooty, is that yes, there is a media bias, but I haven't seen it myself because when the incident happened, I was coming back from the Apple store in Chadstone. For those in Victoria who know where Chadstone is, and
We're not doing plugs on the show, are we?
No, I'm not. I'm just giving you reference to where I was at the time, so why I wasn't watching the incident. So I was going through my Twitter feed, and all of a sudden it erupted with all the footy journalists I follow, and they all said, big incident, he's going to miss finals. So the Victorian media were saying he's going to miss finals straight away. Then I got home, watched the second half, obviously seeing the hit, and John Ralph on Fox Footy's coverage was saying that did the grading, and he said at the worst end it'll be 3 down to 2, best case 2 down to 1, and if the match review panels really stuff up, he'll get off with a reprimand.
Well, if you look at the gradings, it looks like it's negligent impact, high impact, though, at the same time. That does look, and it's not severe impact, but it's definitely forceful. It should be 2 weeks downgraded to 1 with an early guilty plea.
Yeah, that's my instinct as well, that it'll be 2 down to 1.
Yeah,
because I think if it was, any other time of the season, it could push up towards 3, down to 2. But I think, especially because it's finals around the corner, they're not going to rule him out for too much. Even if the AFL has to get in their ear because they don't want their $1 million man sitting on the sidelines for too much of the final series.
Now, the other question is, would Hawthorn accept a suspension like that?
No.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
They'll accept it. I mean, they will definitely accept it.
They won't challenge it, no.
No, because of the chance that he'll miss for extra weeks.
Yeah, it's too much of a risk.
Yeah, I think it would be worth risking.
The only way they'll challenge it is if he gets 3 down to 2.
Yeah. If it's basically a choice between missing the majority of the finals, then I think they'll challenge it, like Robbie's saying. But if it's pretty much a decision whether to accept a 1 week suspension, I think they'll take the 1 week.
Although they've had a lot of luck challenging things this year, and they're that arrogant they might roll the dice.
Well,
good luck to them then.
Challenge, they've been right on point and challenging, but you wouldn't want to risk Buddy missing, say, two finals. Say if they have to play Geelong in a preliminary final, they would not want to have Buddy out of the side. But having said that, Buddy out of the side against Geelong might be the best thing for them.
Well, I was going to say, funnily enough, they actually average a higher score with Buddy out of the side, so this might almost be a blessing in disguise for them.
But what key game has Buddy missed? Well, which good opponents hasn't he played against?
Well, I know he missed the Cats game a little while ago, but obviously the Hawks didn't get up in that one. But there's been a couple of games from memory, I wouldn't know off the top of my head, where he's missed them. And the Hawks have actually been a lot like us without Tippett. They're much more unpredictable and go through their midfielders a bit more.
Well, the thing is, for the major part of the year, they've played Buddy as a high half forward, not as a key position player. So he goes through the middle quite a bit and does play at half forward. So what you do see with Buddy is that, and this is before I think he only really went deep forward around the time of the Essendon game. So whilst he does kick a couple of goals a game, when they played us earlier in the year, he was not playing either centre half forward, full forward. He was playing on the half forward flank, and that's where he kills teams because they're not. In a way, they're trying to negate the chance next year if he does go.
I actually think he's also a better shot for goal from further out anyway. So,
and they're trying to play to his strengths. So they're trying to say, we'll play to his strengths, but we'll also try and minimise the need to keep going to him because he is a brilliant kick, field kick. He's a very deep kick. He can kick. I think there was one kick in the third quarter where he kicked from the centre and hit Roughhead about 20 metres out directly in front.
Yeah, he is a brilliant player, but I think they seem to be getting a more even spread of goal kickers this year with guys like Gunston and Bruce chipping in and Paul below a bit as well. So, I think they're trying to. I don't know if they're preparing for him to go or something, but they've got other players stepping up. So, yeah.
But on the original question about the bias in the media, I thought Bruce spent most of the night trying to get Buddy off, probably because Buddy helps him get off while he's commentating. And they replayed it so many times, and I think every time they tried to downgrade it and play it down. It was late. He bumped into his head. He should go for 2 weeks, 3 weeks down to 2, because it was hit the head, was medium impact, and I think it was pretty reckless.
Unfortunately, with a 3-week suspension, they changed the tribunal rules late last year. Now, under previous rules, the guidelines were if you had served a minimum of 3 weeks over the previous, I think it was 4 or 5 years, you got a 30% loading on your suspension. Unfortunately, they changed that last year, so it's only in the previous 2 years. So it's only any... they minus a few years off. So now it's any suspension since 2011. Unfortunately, since 2000, he's only got one actual ban since... Which is surprising because I thought he had a worse record than this. But his most recent ban was a 1-match ban in 2011. And that's his only suspension in the last few years, meaning he skates in underneath the 3-match ban limit and he actually gets a clean record.
Well, he has missed a lot of games through injury. So that's why he would have got under the limit.
Yeah, I just thought he had a worse record than that with the tribunal.
Well, the changes do help him, but on the question of media bias, I do think there is a media bias trying to get him off, but I think what it is that they're trying to play up to their market, and it is Victoria. The people
they're going to paint it more towards the Victorian market,
Like, we're not going to see many... If I open up The Age, if I open up the Herald Sun this week, I'm not going to see many stories on the Swans.
Probably all on Essendon. But I think it's probably just a bias towards the superstars. That they always want to get the superstars off because they're marketable commodities, which I think you touched on earlier, Robbie. So I think, I'd be surprised if he plays this week, but I can't see him missing much beyond it in reality.
No, definitely not. And if he does get 2 weeks, there is the risk if he challenges in 3 weeks. And say if they beat us, he challenges, he could miss a grand final. So they have to be very careful how they go about it, all of them.
Okay. Well, that's the end of the first part of our podcast for this week. Just to clarify, there will be 2 parts to this week's podcast, not
We'll
one.
leave it on a cliffhanger. You know, I will say Grundy is a ... and I'll finish it off. You have to tune in next time to see what I think of Grundy.
I promise you, for the next part of the podcast, we won't allow any more SM Grundy rants. I think we're all getting a little sick of them.
No, never.
Anyways, the next podcast will come out in a few days. Thank you and good night.